Most manipulation doesn't begin with lies. It begins with feelings. Emotional manipulation works because the human brain is not designed to evaluate information neutrally. It evaluates information emotionally first, then builds thoughts around that emotional response. Whoever learns how to trigger, sustain, or redirect emotion gains quiet influence over perception, judgment, and behavior. This episode is not about villains or conspiracies. It's about mechanisms, patterns that operate whether someone intends harm or not. Emotional manipulation is effective precisely because it feels natural, familiar, and justified in the moment. The first and most powerful tactic is emotional framing. This occurs when information is presented in a way that preloads a specific emotional reaction before thinking begins. The same fact can be framed as a threat or an opportunity, a loss or a gain, a danger or a duty. Once emotion is activated, the brain's interpretation path narrows. Fear-based framing is especially potent. When fear is present, the brain prioritizes certainty over accuracy. It prefers simple explanations and decisive action, even if those explanations are incomplete or wrong. This is why fear-based messaging often includes urgency, absolutes, and warnings of irreversible consequences. A relatable example is a breaking news alert that says, "If you don't act now, it may be too late." Before you've processed the details, your body reacts. Heart rate increases, attention locks in, your mind becomes receptive. At that point, persuasion requires very little effort. Emotion has already opened the door. Another tactic is emotional repetition. The brain treats repetition as importance. When a message is repeated with the same emotional tone, especially anxiety, outrage, or pride, it slowly becomes familiar. Familiarity feels true. Over time, the emotional reaction becomes automatic, bypassing conscious evaluation entirely. This is why slogans, repeated narratives, and emotionally charged phrases are so effective. They don't convince through logic. They condition through exposure. Then there is identity-based emotional leverage. Instead of arguing ideas, manipulation attaches emotion to who a person believes they are. Pride, shame, belonging, and moral worth are activated. Once identity is involved, disagreement feels like an attack, not a discussion. You can see this in everyday conversations. When someone says, "People like us don't think that way," they aren't offering evidence. They're applying emotional pressure. The cost of disagreement becomes social and psychological, not intellectual. Another common tactic is emotional contrast. This involves creating emotional lows in order to make a proposed solution feel relieving, safe, or inevitable. Stress is raised first, then selectively reduced. The relief feels earned, even if the stress was artificially induced. This happens in sales environments, negotiations, and even personal relationships. Tension is introduced, doubt, guilt, fear, followed by reassurance that only one option resolves the discomfort. The brain associates the solution with emotional relief, not objective merit. Emotional exhaustion is also a manipulation strategy. When people are overwhelmed emotionally for long periods, critical thinking weakens. Decision-making becomes reactive. People stop asking whether something is true and instead ask whether it will make the feeling stop. This is why constant outrage, constant urgency, and constant stimulation reduce resistance over time. The mind becomes tired. Tired minds are easier to guide. There is also selective empathy, where emotional validation is offered only when it serves a particular conclusion. Your feelings are acknowledged, but only if they point in the right direction. This creates trust without encouraging independent thought. A real-world example appears in social dynamics. Someone listens deeply, validates your frustration, agrees with your emotional experience, then subtly introduces interpretations that align with their agenda. Because your emotions were honored, the ideas feel safer. Finally, there is emotional misdirection, focusing attention on emotionally charged but secondary issues to distract from primary ones. When attention is consumed by anger or outrage, deeper analysis rarely follows. The brain believes it is engaged, but it is actually diverted. None of these tactics require malice to function. Systems, media, cultures, and even well-meaning individuals use them unconsciously. Emotional manipulation persists because it works, not because people are evil, but because brains are predictable. The key insight is not to eliminate emotion. Emotion is unavoidable. The key is recognition. The moment you notice an emotional spike, fear, anger, pride, urgency, you regain choice. You don't suppress the feeling. You pause long enough to ask what role it is playing in your thinking. Manipulation loses power when emotion is observed instead of obeyed.